We expect them to go out there and propagate everything that the government at all levels are doing, particularly where they operate at the subnational level. If you look at the general situation in Nigeria, particularly in terms of governance, you'll notice that at the macro level, the federal government has put in place a lot of policy initiatives, reforms particularly. And those reforms have had very salutary effect on the macroeconomy of the country. And for the sake of those who may not be very vast in economic concepts, when you talk about macroeconomics, it means something like laying the foundation, very enduring foundation for the takeoff of the economy of the country. It's like building a skyscraper. If you want to build a skyscraper, the foundation you are going to dig is going to be a lot deeper than the foundation for a bungalow, for instance. But while you are digging the foundation of a skyscraper, most people won't see you because you are going deeper and deeper into the ground. It's when you've completed that foundation and you are now laying the building blocks that people see you and it becomes visible. So that is the kind of analogy I can use. Now, the macroeconomics indices are really shooting up. Now, the value of the currency is stabilized, simply because, if you recall, this government met a huge debt portfolio. And in fact, if you also recall, tons or trillions of naira were printed without any productive backup in the last dispensation. And that led to massive degeneration of the currency. And of course, the economic quagmire that we resumed with in this government it was so intimidating that only a courageous leader could sweep out all the dungeon, in the economic space of Nigeria. So that's what the president did, removing the hydra-headed oil fuel subsidy, which had been dragging the economy of the country back. A lot of people had been milking the country dry through the phony fuel subsidy, which was going into private pockets. But now that the subsidy had been removed, if you recall too, there's hardly a government in this country previously that did not recognize the need to remove fuel subsidy, but none had the courage to do so. And so Nigeria was getting deeper and deeper into economic straits. So this government came, the president removed fuel subsidy with a fiat, and then of course merged the dual exchange rate. Now, these were twin hydra-headed monsters, economic monsters, that were dragging the economy of Nigeria backwards. So once these were removed, a lot more money and revenue became accruable to the subnationals, apart from the federal government. The states, the local government, had much more money than before. And if you also do a kind of content analysis, you discover that a lot of the states that were in deep debt morass had cleared their debts right now, and there's more money for them to embark on infrastructural development. So as the federal government has been doing its own bit in terms of ensuring more money accruing to the subnational groups, the federal government is also embarking on major infrastructural development. Like, take the almost 40-something-year-old Lagos-Calabar highway, which had been on the drawing board for decades. The same thing with the Sokoto-Badagry highway had been on the drawing board. I remember as a reporter during the Shagari era, this was mentioned. We covered it at that time, but nothing was done. And we've had several governments between Shagari and now. Nobody had the courage to do it. But this government came because of the removal of fuel subsidy and the availability of some extra money. It's been poured into the constructive sectors of the economy. Now, when you ginger up the constructive sectors of the economy, the economic indices begin to rise up. But it's not a 24-hour event. It takes a little while before that macro positivities now seep or percolate into the micro. Now, when people say, oh, this thing is expensive, rice is this, rice is that, or tomato is expensive, that's the micro. But if you don't stabilize the macro, you cannot get advantages of the micro. So when, for instance, there is a stability in the economy via more revenue accruing to the subnationals to embark on infrastructural development, then employment generation will begin to rise. And with employment generation, production will begin to grow. With growth of production, there will be more money to circulate within the economy. So the micro will then eventually be taken care of. When there's productive ventures in the country, your currency will automatically become stronger. And now, if you look at the financial institutions across the globe, they are saying, with confidence that, Nigeria seems to be out of the economic crisis, because they can see the indicators. So this is why we say, at the subnational levels, the various states are also doing their own bit. But a lot of the people are not so aware of it. So that is why we said we must meet with the publicity secretaries of the state chairman, state organ of the party, of the APC, so that we rub minds together. If they have challenges, they will let us know, and we know how to address these challenges, so that they can all go back and propagate all that the government at the various levels have been doing, especially their own at the state level. At the federal level, of course, there is a lot more information going out there. But at the state level, we need the information, our propagation of what the various states have been doing to be out there in the open, and let the masses, the people at the grassroots level, become more aware and more conscious of what their governments are doing for them. And with all of this, there will be, a harmony in terms of communication flow. Essentially, we run a democracy, and in a democracy, unlike the military, that did not curry the favor of the public, that did not ask anybody for votes, and they didn't need to carry the public along. But in a democracy, you need to carry the populace along with all the policies that you're executing. This is why information communication is essential and is a critical factor of democracy. And that's why we are here, to really rub minds with our colleagues at the state level, so that together, if we are doing ours at the federal level and they are doing theirs at the subnational level, the Nigerian population will become more aware of what the government is doing, and there will be a lessening of the tension. And of course, with adequate information, ignorance is removed, because we have a large dose of ignorant people out there, especially on the social media. They call them the invasion of the idiots. That is what one philosopher called it. Because a lot more people act out of ignorance, not necessarily out of mischief. But there is a sizable proportion that act out of mischief, not because they don't know, but because of political differences and all that. They just, resort to be deliberately mischievous. But we don't have to look at that. We have to look at the larger majority who may be ignorant of what government